and welcome you to our September board meeting. Mr. Beal is out this evening. He's at the State Superintendent Conference. So tonight we have Ms. Chris Giannetti, Assistant Superintendent of Communications, filling in for him. So we are on number 2, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mrs. Oxley, we are ready for the roll call.
Ms. Hamilton, Mrs. Brown, Mr. White.
Here.
Mrs. Simonetti, Ms. Hunt.
Here.
And Mrs. Mitchell.
Here. Okay, we are on number 4, approval of the agenda. So at this time, I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Support. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Shalonda. Any deliberation? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Number 5 is the superintendent's report, so I will pass it over to Ms. Giannetti.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody to the September board meeting. This evening we have our 4th Street Learning Center and Parkside, the middle school at Parkside, Associate Principal Krista Jarvie, and, Principal, I just made you Associate Principal. Principal of Instruction, Krista Jarvie, Robert Berkey, and Destiny Davis as our assistant principals with a presentation for us. Thank you very much for coming.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, I don't know what this needs to be. Okay. So if you'll look on your table in front of you, you should have a pamphlet that looks like this. That's labeled, it's labeled Middle School at Parkside 21-22 Data Equity Review. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. If you have questions, you can always email us. But we just wanted to show with you, with all of the DEI work that we did last year, we really took it to heart here at Parkside, and we really delved in and made it part of our everyday. So we asked teachers to look at their data for grades and discipline when we looked at different ethnicities with students and how that was different. If you'll look at some of the graphs, you'll see at trimester 2, our Caucasian students overall were doing better in grades than our African American children, and then the other populations that we have are just subgroups. They're too small to count, but they are listed there. And by the last try 3, you will see that the African American students and our Caucasian students performed about the same in grades. So why? Why was there an improvement? We have a few things that we'd like to talk about. The first thing is just being trained and coming to the realization and being cognizant of our choices and what we do when we're talking with our students and when we're teaching our students, when we're assessing our students, what are some things to help? So that was the first thing, just being cognizant of our biases, right? Bobby, did you want to touch a little bit on the rest?
Yeah. Sorry. Take it right out. Okay, cool. And so some of the other things that we thought affected this as well was our after-school cafe program. So this was an after-school program focused on academics that we started trimester 2, and we ran it through the 3rd trimester. And so we had 8 certified teachers that stayed after an hour twice a week. We believe that had an effect on it. And also just we had an intentional reflection. So after each trimester, our teachers did what we call an equity audit. And so they were forced to look at what it is the data says and then fill out a reflection on what it is, right? So sometimes, and I thought maybe it's human nature, but we don't want to accept when something says that we're doing something wrong, right? But we take that data, we make the adjustments needed, and we think that had some of the effect. And so we'll continue to look at the effectiveness of those programs and continue to work to improve.
Also, as part of our school improvement team, we're not only going to be looking at grades, but we're going to be looking at behavior and other things like that. We discussed it at our last school improvement team that this is really driving us this year. This is one of the things that's driving us this year. just gathering data. So if you have any questions about this packet, we're going to be brief tonight because I know we only have 10 minutes. But please feel free to look through this. If you have any questions, you can email any three of us about our equity data from last year.
And then in terms of this year for what we're doing, we're continuing to do everything that they just explained that we did last year. But part of some of the things that we're doing as administrators is that every Friday we're getting a report of all the log entries that were entered for our grade that week. And that's broken down by subgroup, by gender, ethnicity, and then special education status. So we're looking at those things. And then from those things, we're getting totals. So as we start to implement more PBIS, we start doing our small groups with counselors from these lists based on log entries and maybe the student's really struggling this specific time, or just that data week by week instead of just at the trimester on our end. We are making success groups. We're using it as a program evaluation tool for our PBIS, for after-school cafe, and for all of those other things that we're implementing weekly instead of just at the trimester. Documentations are being taken out, so we're really looking at behavior and things like that, and then common issues that maybe we can address as a staff or as a whole school because we see it becoming more of an issue. And then at the end of the year, we'll have weekly the number of log entries. So we'll be able to look at week by week as we get closer to breaks and things like that. As we come back from a break, what revisiting of norms and expectations can we do as a staff and as an administrative team to help with that?
Okay, and so the second part of this packet, I wanted to take some time to talk to you about how we use data to inform our instruction. So we've got a few pictures here, and again, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. We'll get through it, but it's nice to know when we spend money on something like NWEA has come back, the MAP testing, and IXL, how it's used. And so we're going to kind of briefly see how it affects a class level and the curriculum at the class level, and then how we drive it down to the individual student. So if you flip over, you'll see a chart. This is the mean RIT scores for the sample size that NWEA has conducted, and it's millions of students are in this. And what this does is it puts it on a grade level. So this RIT score, this race unit it's called, is an equally incremented scale that will show you what grade level that student's on. So we use this to see where our students are at, and that is given to us by this NWEA MAP test that we take in the fall, winter, and spring. Once the students take it in the fall, they now have a baseline score, okay? And so that on that given day, that true score is outlined in this achievement status and growth projection sheet. In the middle, you'll see a bold number. It looks a little unclear because our printer was kind of giving up on me, but anyways, that score was that day, and then there is a standard deviation. So if that student were to take that test relatively soon after, they would be projected to fall into that range. So with that score, what our students will do is they'll identify kind of where they're at, and then we go through what the goal setting is for them. So what are we going to do as we move forward through the year? What do you identify as places of improvement for yourself? And for teachers, they will then give them their projected goal. And so what that goal represents is a year's worth of growth. So it makes sense that if you're sitting in our classrooms for a year, you should probably have at least a year's worth of growth, and that's where we're going. So this is kind of the summary report. And on the next one, you'll see this one with blue and green lines. This is what our learning continuum is. And so based on that RIT score, and this is a really extensive tool that we have. I just did one example here, and you'll see that 191 out of 200 is the score range that is highlighted here. And so for students that fall into that range on their baseline in the fall, you'll see that this learning continuum will assist teachers in getting the skills that they need to, one, reinforce, so maybe that are just below where they scored, two, develop, so where they're at right now, and then three, introduce, so where are they going next? So it's that zone of that proximal development, right? What is just the right amount for them to continue to grow? And then there's also a class view, so we have students and teachers can access where the students are and what the skills are needed to gain that improvement. And so with that, we get that RIT score, we get those strands of wanted improvement. We have a program called IXL, and this is a supplement, and this is where we can get down to the individual student. On this first page, you'll see a breakdown, and at the top it has a RIT score. And so for that RIT score, this program, IXL, breaks down what practice those students need. And so you'll see next to the numbers, there's like a green description of what that skill is. That's a link for the student to go ahead and click. This is called a skill plan. And so that ties directly to the assessment we do. So that supplemental program, IXL, works directly with NWEA. And it also is tied to the Michigan standards. And so at the very end, and I'll finish this up, is just an example of what one of the IXL questions would look like. So this is kind of the format of it. And so I went ahead and answered the question wrong, and you can see that when it comes to on purpose, because I want what we need here is instant feedback. And so studies show that, you know, if a student goes home and does 10, 15 problems and they go back the next day, 6th hour, and now they've got to review what they did last night, it's not as effective as that instant feedback. And so this program gives the instant feedback. It's got visuals. It's got descriptions of how they can do better on that particular question. And so then just to wrap it up, there is a single-page document, and this is going to go home with our students so that families understand what this assessment is, right? So this is a good description of why we take the MAP test and what it tells us. And I think it's important that families have a little bit of some clarity on that.
Okay, just quickly to kind of review the whole school now. Just an update on 4th Street Learning Center. It is going wonderful this year. I'm very proud of the successes that they've already had this year. We've seen a huge improvement in attendance. That is due to our social worker and counselors calling home daily, just connecting with the families. They have their cell phones. They're calling home daily, checking in. It's really a community. They include the parents, and they really trust that program and trust those teachers, and they're coming. So we've had the most kids show today. We were very happy about that. And because of that, we believe that that's because we've done a lot of new implementations at 4th Street. So they now have a PBIS program in place at 4th Street. They have daily tickets that they can earn for prizes based on their being responsible, being respectful, and being safe, So they get these tickets, and they get to click off when they do it. If they do, they get a small reward at the end of the day. If you have all your tickets at the end of the week, you get a bigger prize. So they are very motivated by this, as you can, I'm sure, imagine, and they are doing very wonderful. They're looking forward to school. We're addressing the bus issues that we had last year. We're not having as many bus issues. Resets for students, we've had like 2 in a day, and I don't know if you know, but that's very good. So we're having students working, enjoying school. We now have Power Mondays at 4th Street. Mr. Patterson is coming with instrumental people in the community who would be a good influence on our students, and they're coming to speak every Monday, hence Power Monday. Also, the garden is almost finished up completely, so we're very excited about that. We have our local senior citizen home. Senior citizens come and help our students with the garden, so that's also a great community involvement. And then that will move us down to our current events. So I'll speak a little bit on some of them, and then Destiny can. One of the things I'm really proud of is this year we're working with MSU in a program called Goals. They're here this week to do the screening, and what it is, it's a, usually I don't need a microphone. They come in and they do a screening with our students. It's about 80 kids that signed up, and they get their height and their weight, and they do a pacer test. And then they have to wear a pedometer, and they are tracking, their steps and their exercise. They call the kids, say, hey, what'd you eat today? And we have created a club after school every Tuesdays and Thursdays. It will be in this room. This room will be the cooking class. So they're going to teach our kids. They're going to bring food. This is all free. And they're going to teach kids how to cook healthy meals, give them the food to make at home with their families while the other group is exercising next door, and then they flip-flop. And after the program, they're going to see if there was a difference. And we're not, we're actually the focus school, so we're not like, I was like, I want to be a focus school. If we can't be a focus school, I don't want to do it because I want the real stuff. So that is going extremely well. Our students are excited. Our parents are excited. It's going very smoothly. So I'm really excited to bring this program to Parkside.
And then I'm going to talk about how we've made Parkside a little homey because we Crystal and I are the beautification team. So if you have been in the school before, you'll know, like, we did a lot of work with the bond, but we were adding our mural to it. So right before school started, we painted over. The alien mural had been primed, and now it's beautiful and waiting for me to come in on a weekend and make it even more beautiful. The office is very welcoming. Not that it wasn't before, but there's a more homey touch that might be, that's mostly Krista's work in TJ Maxx. So that's been really nice. Parents have commented on it. Community members that have come in, our substitute teachers have commented about how welcoming and friendly all the people are, but then also it's got a homey smell, and it's a good space to come into. And then we are a complete safe and secure building now as part of our bond. We have our brand new breezeway. And now teachers they're swiping to get into the building from the breezeway, either going into 4th Street or they're coming into Parkside. We have someone that sits there and buzzes people in, children or staff like myself, who always leave their key card in their office. So that's also like a huge step. And I've had people that are either walking through, doing a meet and greet if they're interested in a position. That's a big point for them, that they feel safe in the building. And we're checking doors. Our security staff are going at the end, as soon as school starts. They're checking as soon as buses have unloaded that all the exterior doors are locked. You hear them on the walkies communicating to each other.
And to wrap this up, we have at the middle school, this is our first year implementing the AVID program. So this is something that's been going on at the high school. We have a team of AVID teachers and representatives, so we are still learning the ropes, but right now we have 17 students involved in this AVID program, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and we look to continue to grow that moving forward. Our first big event for the AVID students is we actually have a college visit to Albion College on September 30th, so we're going to go and they're going to tour the college and just get a feel of what it's like, and so they can start thinking about that at the middle school level.
Do we do questions?
Oh, I'll ask that. So thank you for the presentation. I also just wanted to take note of how exciting it is to see you guys as a new and team together working so closely. I can feel the camaraderie, and I look forward to the culture changes at Parkside. You really, and 4th Street, you're really just impressive. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll turn it over to the board if you have any questions on their presentation. I think for sure we'd like to know what AVID stands for in case anybody is unaware of that.
I'm not entirely sure what it is.
Can you explain the program then?
Yeah, absolutely. So AVID it's a career and college readiness program. And so when we think of students making that jump to the next level, when we see students that don't quite work out, it's how are they processing that information? And so in this class, we're teaching the strategies to process that information, to interact with the information, especially because the college schedule is a little different, right? You might go Tuesday, Thursday, come back on Tuesday, whereas in K through 12, you're meeting Monday through Friday. You're revisiting it every day. So this is a class entirely based on strategies on how to interact and process your material. It kind of reminds me of what a reading apprenticeship would be. They're called Wicker strategies. So it's just reading comprehension, how do you interact with that content, and how do you make sure that you're going to take it on to the next part that you need it.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
I have a couple questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Can you explain the process for reviewing the data? So we have this data here, and I was just wondering, is there a group of individuals that collect the data and put this PowerPoint together? Is it one individual? And then that's question one. You want to answer that one first?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, and then the other question is, you mentioned that there's a huge increase in the attendance at the 4th Street Learning Center.
Yes.
Is it in the forecast that we will have data for our test scores in the fall, so on and so forth? Like, is there a roadmap that we are like providing to our teachers to ensure that this trend continues?
So for the first question, we have a group, our school improvement team. So how we get the data is when we do our evaluations with our teachers, we have a pre-conference, we do a mid-year, and at the end of the year. We have created a document that each teacher gets, an evaluation kind of audit document with all the tabs on how they're going to be evaluated at the end of the year, and it's their job to fill it in throughout the year. So when they do their reflection piece on what their data is saying, they send us that link to that Google form, and we get that. Then we take all that information from their data that they input into this Google Drive, this evaluation audit, and then we have Mr. Marsh is our instructional coach, and he works closely with us as well as with the school improvement team to create those graphs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that evaluation audit is shared with Mr. Patterson as well as Mr. Beal, because that's then the evaluation we have to bring. So then we have to summarize all of the information for Mr. Beal and Mr. Patterson. So when we come to our evaluation at the end of the year, we have our data to prevent of our whole school.
And in the spreadsheet that teachers have, there's formulas already in there for them. So it has their caseload roster on it with ethnicity and then I believe special education status as well. But then they just have to go in and enter log entries, discipline logs for each student, and then also their grades. And then all of that is calculated and formulated. Mr. Marsh has said it. So then it populates percentages. So you can see how many of your African-American students have logs, how many of your Caucasian students have logs, and then our other subgroups as well. And then also for A's and B's, it's broken down by ethnicity, gender, and special education status. So all of that is done for them. And then they were looking at those in departments. Department chairs are leading conversations. And then they're able to fill out that reflection after having those conversations about like, why does my data look like this? What's going on in my classroom? And having those intentional discussions about it as a department.
Thank you.
Did that answer both of your questions?
Yes, just can you please speak to the, so we do project that the numbers will be present for our 4th Street Learning students?
So we plan on, the district has really done a very nice job this year, our human resource department, on hiring the cream of the crop. This wasn't bottom of the barrel leftover. These are people who are top-notch teachers, and doing that has made a huge impact on 4th Street Learning Center. We have a new vision. I think the leadership being changed has helped a lot, and I'm not saying it's me, but I think that removing some people, changing some people has really made an impact on that program. I meet with them daily. That's new to them, so I meet with them daily after school. We have meetings frequently to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we're going to continue with the PBIS. We're going to continue with the tickets. They really enjoy that. For data, we're doing NWEA, just like us, so we're going to continue to do that. I know that one of the teachers at 4th Street has a mentor. His mentor is Lisa Waddell, so she is helping him with curriculum because he came in late last year, so he didn't really have the opportunity to learn the curriculum, so we're doing that. Sending them to conferences. We have growth plans for our teachers. So I only anticipate that this is just the start of it getting even bigger, like a snowball down the hill. That's what I'm anticipating. Because we're not going to stop what we're doing because it's working. We're just going to add to it.
Thank you.
We also added cooking classes to 4th Street as well. So now they can choose between gym, PE, and then they can choose cooking and learn how to cook some meals. So we've added that as well. And then next we're going to add art. So they have more opportunities for their elective because before it's always been just gym. So now we're adding art and cooking.
That's exciting. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Please pass along to your staff that we are very proud of the work they are doing, and we know it takes a team effort to get there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next I'd like to introduce Julie Baker, our Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Education, for an elementary update, please.
Good evening, everyone. Excellent presentation. That was really exciting to see the things that are happening there. And AVID stands for Advancement Via Individual Determination. I would like to say that I knew that from heart, but I Googled it for you, so. You're so welcome. Lots of exciting things happening in our elementary buildings. So we've got some September highlights. We've got schools that are celebrating our Hispanic Heritage Month, which is September 15th through October 15th. One of the schools that has really gone all out is Northeast. They had a wonderful Hispanic Heritage Night. Over 150 people came. Lots of fun activities for everyone. Some other highlights this month. Cascades is just, they're moving forward. They've got a new pledge, and they've got some new paras. They've got a lot of new paras in that building, and some retired teachers that are working with students. Dibble has a new PBIS theme, Spot the Dibble Difference. Tickets are given out. They are getting ready to do a Razzle Dazzle Day, which is wonderful. And students are leading their morning announcements. At Hunt, it's Kind to Be Cool Assembly. They had a mini concert with students singing patriotic songs for Constitution Day. And another thing that's really exciting is that all of our buildings now have a librarian that's visiting them. So in the past, it was just something that Sharp Park had in place, but the Jackson District Library is partnering with us now, so there's a librarian that's traveling from school to school. So that's a really neat thing that has been added this year. We're excited about that. Montessori has Girls on the Run, and they're piloting an SEL, or a social emotional learning program called Trails. And they've got a lot of new things there, a new collaboration room, a new peace room. Their enrollment is up. There's some good things happening there. And then Mr. Campbell joined the FCC Board of Directors, so the Felician Children's Center Board of Directors. So he's strengthening that partnership, and we're excited about that. Northeast is still working with the Village Hope Church. There's a nice partnership happening there. Sharp Park has a big celebration happening. Jasper Lusby every once in a while would reach out to me in complete frustration because they weren't releasing the MEEP scores. I'm sorry, MEEP, I'm so old. The MSTEP scores fast enough. So she got very excited recently. The teachers at, the students at Sharp Park Academy, through their hard work with the teachers at Sharp Park Academy, they outscored the state by 25 points in ELA and 29 points in math. And it's very exciting to see that. And that is an increase through the period of COVID. So that's a big thing that I know she's very proud of, and we're very proud of the work that they're doing there too. So lots of fun things happening. PBIS is going strong, and they're planning on the Spobstacle over there at Sharp Park. At Lewis, they've also got new paraprofessionals. They have a behavior interventionist. Mr. Bradley is back in the district, and he is in their refocus room. I have a lot of kids that I know are very excited to see him. Our kids know and love Mr. Bradley, so we're happy to have him around. Lots of our schools have had Smiles on Wheels, which is a great partnership that we have, where kids are able to get their teeth cleaned and checked right inside of the school, which is something that's a great service for them and for their parents. Food bags in a few of our different schools that are sponsored by different churches, and some other really great things happening. Mr. Washington doing some art projects at Lewis, so we always like to see his art. He's a very talented artist from Jackson. And lots of PD that's happening. We are continuing on. All of our schools will be doing some active shooter training this year, and also they are doing their monthly reviews of the EOP, the Emergency Operations Plan. So that's going strong. We are working with Teacher Pay Teacher. We have a new subscription for the district, and everybody is just waiting very patiently for that to come out, but that's exciting for everyone. And we have a new math program. We've been looking for something, we call it the Math Lexia, because we love our Lexia program. We really feel like it's a great support for our kids. They work at their level. When they get stuck, it does an instructional piece for them 2 or 3 times. And then if they still are not able to pass on, it flags the teacher, and the teacher can work in small groups with kids. So it allows some really strong differentiation to happen for kids. Well, we just adopted Symphony, and this is our first year with it. We piloted it during summer school, and we're hoping that it is our math Lexia. The students seem to like it a lot. It looks very similar to Lexia. It's encouraging, and it incentivizes students to know where they're at and to want to go a little further. So some great things happening there, and lots of family things already happening. We are getting families into school, multicultural make and take family night at Lewis. And of course, we've got parents in at Sharp Park helping to plan all of these things, Bobstacle, art and action lessons. So just some really great things happening in all of our schools. And last but not least, one thing that is coming to all of our elementary schools is Building Healthy Communities. And it's a grant that all of our schools received, our K through 5 schools. And it does things like fund a health champion, and that person will put on an after-school program that focuses on nutrition and activity. So there's money to pay for that. They include a PE and nutrition curriculum, funding for all kinds of PE and physical education. Sorry about the acronyms. I'm trying to remember. Physical education and recess equipment. It's just a great program, so we're really excited that that's happening this year as well. And that's all for the elementary report. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you to all of our elementary principals and staff and students for their hard work this year. We appreciate all of you, and lots of fun things happening. I'd like to just continue with the superintendent's report just to give a little bit of a bond update for you all. First of all, the Owl Glick Athletic Center is coming along amazingly, and we're almost ready for our ribbon cutting. That should be sometime in October. We are waiting for some signage and a few more things to happen there. We will do a dual event with our new aquatic center as well. So as you know, we weren't able to do that last year because of the pandemic, and then we had some repairs done to the pool. So we are looking forward to that big event, and we promise that you will know all about it when it is time. We thank Jasper for her continued patience as Sharp Park continues with their renovations. And if you haven't driven by there, it's pretty impressive, and it's going to look amazing when it's done. So we thank everybody for their patience as we get to that point. Also, if you have a chance, we are also redoing the media center at Jackson High School, and that's coming along quite well. And we are looking forward to Cafe Orange being open pretty soon. And with the esports room up there is really an amazing space that is going to just change the way our students learn. And as you know, we now call them media centers, and you'll see why when you get a chance to visit that as well. And finally, I just want to remind everybody that it is homecoming week and starting next week, so that's Spirit Week. So if you look around our schools and you check our Facebook pages and everybody's doing some crazy stuff, we haven't lost our minds yet. It is Spirit Week, and homecoming is on the 30th, and so there is no better time to be a Viking. This is going to be an exciting week coming up. So we know everybody puts a lot of hard work into that, and there is a parade as well that starts at 6 p.m. We also have this year something new, which I commend the Jackson High School for, is adding the food trucks. I think this will be really exciting with some tailgating and just really upping the event to something very exciting. And of course, we're hoping for a win. And with that, I am going to conclude the superintendent's report and return the meeting back to President Mitchell.
Okay, thank you. We are on number 6, the consent agenda. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Thank you, Libby. Thank you, Shalonda. Any deliberation? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We are on number 7, citizens requesting to address the board. So I have some here. I'll just call you up one by one, and we have a fancy new timer here. So just a reminder, you have 5 minutes, and there's just no back and forth. And when it's your time's up, if you could please conclude your comments. So first up, we have Marilyn Acton-Dowell.
Thank you. Can you hear me? So, the annual education report is right on the website, and I printed out all 72 pages, and I'm working my way through it. But I just wanted to bring up the reading scores. It's actually on page 69. So grade 4 reading. So the percent proficient's 32%. And in 8th grade, it's 31%. But I'm feeling extremely hopeful with your presentation. I think we're really working to get these scores back up. And I know it was during the COVID lockdown and everything. So, I just wanted to talk about when my kids went here. So they graduated in 2006 and 2009. And I don't know if a lot of people were here. I think maybe Libby was. But my children would come home so excited with what they were learning. So I don't know if anyone has ever heard of John Perkins, who wrote the book, The Economic Hitman. But they brought him to Jackson High, and he's famous. And so Nick was so excited. He came home and was like, just thrilled, Mom, you've got to get this book. And I read it. I was thrilled. I gave it to my mom. I gave it to my brother. And it really taught me a lot about life. And then if anyone remembers Mr. Pedlow, oh my gosh, my kids were so excited about Mr. Pedlow. And my son kept saying, Mom, you need to come to Jackson High and sit in and listen to Mr. Pedlow. I go, I don't think he really wants your mom to be sitting in on the classroom. But, and then my other son was a gifted artist. And so he had a chance to be on the Reflector yearbook. And that's where he learned photography. So he's actually a photographer now. He's a wedding photographer. But he was really good at cartooning. And so he had a cartoon strip, which was hilarious and would make Jackson High look like Hogwarts and just really funny things. So, and then the drama department was just incredible. And so my children were able to be in drama. And gosh, it was just, and they're, marching band, and they played soccer, they're in the jazz band. So I really love what we have. There's so much opportunity here. So I know that the COVID lockdown and the masking and, that remote learning really kind of set a lot of kids back. But I'm really feeling really hopeful about what's going on now. And I just really wanted to kind of give a testimony, because when I think back, my kids really grew from the experience. And they both went to the inaugurations, I guess, now that I think about that too. I mean, so thanks, Libby. So that's really the statement I wanted to make tonight. So thank you all for listening. And I am running for school board, Marilyn Acton Dowell. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Next up is Fred Trexler.
Thank you for your reports from the superintendents. And I gather from reading your website and from the reports that I've seen that you're interested in the students learning well, and you're interested in the parents taking a part in their education. And that's great. I encourage you for that. But it's come to my attention that the Michigan Department of Education has adopted a radical gender theory program that promotes gender fluidity beginning in elementary school and encourages teachers to facilitate the sexual transition of minors without parental consent. That is dangerous. And I urge you, don't let that happen here in Jackson. We need the parents to take part in the kids' education, and they need to know what's going on. This training program mimics the basic narrative of academic queer theory. The presenters claim that the West has created a false notion that gender is binary, But you know in your hearts gender is binary. God made them in the beginning male and female, and there is no in-between. And they're doing this, Michigan Department of Education is doing this, they say, to oppress racial and sexual minorities, that this false notion, but it's not a false notion. This ideology has deep ramifications for school policy. The training recommends that teachers abandon so-called gendered language, such as boys and girls, and replace those terms with gender-neutral variations such as earthlings, people with penises, and people with vulvas. The Department of Education also advises teachers to create gender and sexual alliance clubs targeting students as young as elementary school, using private communications and fictitious names to conceal the nature of these initiatives from parents. That is wrong. This is pure radicalism, transmitted from Michigan's centralized bureaucracy into classrooms throughout the state. The presenters know that parents would reject their theories in any open discussion. So they go to great lengths to conceal their efforts from the public. They have chosen to create a secret gender radicalism pipeline that uses state resources to push a destructive ideology onto public school children. Don't let it happen here in Jackson. I urge you, school board members, do what's right. Remember, Jesus said in Matthew 18, verse 6, that if anyone causes one of these little children to sin, it would be better that a millstone be tied around their neck and they be drowned in the sea.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Helen. And Helen, before you start, just there's no address on here. Can you just tell me what school you go to? Okay, thanks.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Helena Jensen from the Jackson School District area. I'd like to address some things this evening. CRT is the biggest topic right now in education, and I think everyone can agree on that. Did you know that critical theory, also now known as critical race theory, is a communistic term? Yes, that was part of Darwin's theory, who was a communist Marxist. This is what is in our schools. Are you seriously, wholeheartedly all right with this? So instead of teaching us the real history of the United States was, we are being taught transgenderism, pronouns, and who wants to identify as what on any particular day. Then we have white hate. So I'm supposed to feel guilt over something I did not do, and I'm supposed to treat others as victims instead of holding one responsible for their own actions. If this wasn't bad enough, I'm being taught basic social status and basic social income. I'm not too ignorant to know that this is socialism. I am of the belief that socialism does not belong in our schools because capitalism is what made and makes our country great. In some schools, CRT is disguised as SEL or second step. Wanting to know who lives in my home and where is not the business of the school, nor is how many animals, their names, or who they sleep with isn't the school's business unless I choose to share that information. We the people have lost trust in all our agencies, and this is just part of the reason why. We need true leadership. We need teachers who will put America first, therefore putting students first, and start teaching us what honestly made and makes the United States the greatest country on earth. I am praying you will fight for us students because I do not want to see the light diminished in America. If it goes out here, it goes out for the rest of the world. I was at a school board meeting, and they were surprised about how many children were not at school. I, for one, am not surprised. Or is it just I've been paying attention? God bless you all. Have a great evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Jennifer Bidinger.
Hello, thank you for allowing us to speak. I also wanted to speak about this radical gender theory program that the Department of Education has been pushing. I know that they are installing training programs for the staff of school in order to indoctrinate them from this minority platform. I just wanted to reinforce what Mr. Trexler was saying. I represent a lot of parents, children in the schools, and community members who are very much against this indoctrination, this theology that wants to be pushed on in our schools. And I am against taking the time and the financial resources to waste on this radical teaching. Thankfully, in our country, we still have the freedom to make these choices. As you said, male, female, yes, people have the choice to go somewhere in between all that and make their own choices, and thankfully we have the freedom to do that as adults. But as children, as I've said in the past, I'm glad when I was an extreme tomboy as a child, I didn't have the influences of my teachers or adults' influences saying, you should be, you know, I think you're struggling, you're probably really a boy, or something along that line. I'm thankful that as children are growing and learning and looking up to their authorities and their adults, that they weren't teaching untruths and trying to influence in this way. So we're very much against that. And as I talk to the school districts around, they all say, well, we don't teach CRT. Well, as a matter of fact, the department encourages teachers to adopt the principle of intersectionality in all this, which is a key tenet of critical race theory. So if you are pushing this stuff, you are teaching critical race theory, and there is an agenda behind it to divide us, to cause all these problems. So don't try to say you're not a part of that if you are. And if you are teaching that in here, I don't know what you're teaching specifically and what each individual teacher is teaching, but if you are, you should be ashamed, because none of this should be taught in the public schools. None of this should be taught in the public schools. We want to focus on math, science, English, all the trades, wonderful things that produce good results for teaching truth to our children, and not influencing them wrongly. Finally, the Department of Education teaches school employees how to facilitate the sexual transition of children under their care while keeping the process a secret from parents. The trainers explicitly tell educators that they should keep a student's new name, pronouns, and sexual identity confidential, including from family, unless otherwise directed by the child. This is wrong. I hope you are not indoctrinating your teachers and your staffs to be doing this. As parents discover what is happening, they will revolt against it and seek to restore their fundamental right of parents to direct the education of their children. That's what we want. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up is William Hastings.
Keeping my eye on the timer. I hadn't intended on commenting tonight. I feel inspired to do so by the presentation from Parkside that led off this meeting. So first of all, I think we've all are familiar with the expression, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Don't throw out the good with what's bad. So I think the fact that there are some programs underway that were described, such as the after-school cafe program, that sounds very laudable, a very good way to try to keep kids studying, better connected with their studies, maybe have extra tutoring time with teachers and that sort of thing. And they also describe some nutrition fitness programs, and I couldn't say a word of disagreement against that. The problem arises in, if you look through this report, which is billed as a data equity review, so this is just, you know, DEI in Chrysalis form, but the data equity review it's really just page after page of how grades are being shaped and manipulated by race and sex. And in the conclusion, it notes that we believe some of the causes for improvement are due to the intentional reflection of each teacher every trimester. So the grades are being altered due to the intentional reflection of the teacher, but not the actual real-world achievement or effort or competency of the student. And I'm going to tell you why this is fundamentally meaningless, because this is only meaningful if you put the changes in grades side by side with test proficiency and break that down by race as well. And if there's a disconnect there, then hey, you know what? I can if I was in that position, I could hand out A's and B's like candy on Halloween night. It's not meaningful. Now, according to Public School Review, Parkside Middle School, 17% of children are proficient in math, 83% are not. 31% are proficient in reading. So 69% are not. And those are substantially less than the averages for the state of Michigan. So I just think this is really questionable, and if you want to represent data of this nature, as I said, put it side by side with test scores and proficiencies, and if you're going to do grades by race, you better do the proficiencies by race. And I've seen them for Parkside, and they're pretty dismal, and they're worse for black kids. But this is I'm sorry guys, this is fundamentally, this is just, you know, wallpaper. This is window dressing. It is a statistic that is devoid of actual core competencies as measured by the state. You have that data. You all have that data. You have access to the data. And it'd be very easy to pull it together and put it side by side. So I'm disappointed in that regard. And I would recommend to everyone on this board, and there's some candidates for school board in the audience, a book that was published earlier this year. The book is entitled Race to the Bottom. It is by an author named Luke Rosiak, who is a bona fide, real deal investigative reporter. It's about the state of education, especially public education in America. And I bring this to your attention. A, it's a superb read to anyone who's involved in any facet in education issues. They should be aware of this title. But he spends there's a chapter in the book in which he writes extensively about the ways in which some of the largest school districts in the country, and this is a very well-documented book. There's about 60 pages of endnotes. But the ways in which they specifically game the grading of students, they game proficiency statistics and scores themselves, and they game the graduation rates. And it's pretty blatant, and it's pretty corrupt. And just looking through these statistics tonight, it was reminiscent of that. So, thanks, and I appreciate your attention.
Thank you.
I'm just going to thank our speakers, but also just to let you know, in case you are getting any texts, that we have a shelter in place at the high school during the middle school game because of weather. So there are our staff is out there and they're taking care of the stands, the folks in the stands, and our players. But I'm just interrupting to let you know that in case you are getting texts or any information, that is the reason why the stadium at Jackson High School has gone into a shelter in place. And also, just to let you know, that is why our middle school principals had to leave, so I apologize.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we are on number 8, which is discussion items. We don't have any this evening. Number 9 is action items. So the first one is 22-23-30, and that's the MacBook Air teacher devices. So I will pass it over to Marcus.
All right, so our teacher devices are nearing the end of their useful life, so we received a quote to replace them with the newest version of the MacBook Air. At this time, we'll recommend approve the purchase of 375 MacBook Air devices in the amount of $404,625, so that we'll be able to receive them in time and get them configured and handed out to staff this year.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the purchase of 375 MacBook Air devices in the amount of $404,625 as presented. Thank you, Libby. Thank you, Aaron. Any deliberation? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next action item is 22-23-31. And that's the Jackson High School Stadium Project signage. Marcus.
So again, as we come to near the completion of the athletic facility, we've received a quote from Johnson Sign for signage around that complex, the concession building, the athletic facility, and the surrounding site. This will be funded through both the stadium and the general fund as needed as we get close to expending the remaining funds that we received for this project. So we would recommend the approval of the quote from Johnson Sign in the amount of $105,555.
Thank you. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the quote from Johnson Sign Company in the amount of $105,555 as presented. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Libby. Any deliberation? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We are on number 10, so at this time I would open up the floor to any board comments.
Just a comment on the buses. You know, I know how much of a struggle and that can be before the school year starts. So for the administrators and everyone that's been involved with that situation to kind of help, you know, with a national shortage of bus drivers, you know, a lot of parents on the outside looking in just don't understand that it's truly a crisis. So, you know, I know in my area, it's you know, parents are carpooling and working through it the best they can, but I know we're doing our best to get through that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Cheryl?
I wanted to share with the board and also anyone in the audience who's interested. I recently attended a tour of the Jackson County Jail on Wesley Street with the sheriff, and it's a very impressive tour. If anyone wants to go, I can submit your name, but they are campaigning for a millage on the November ballot. It's a 3.5 renewal and an increase of 1/2 of a millage. And just going through that facility, I mean, it is abysmal. To think that people actually work and are housed there is awful. And so, I mean, it is, every single county in the state is required to have a county jail. And out of every county in the state of Michigan, Jackson has the worst jail in the entire state. So their goal is to tear it down and build new. They have some awesome recommendations and proposals that will improve living conditions, working conditions, and programming and education for any residents that are housed there. So I do have some pamphlets if anyone's interested, and if you would like to go on a tour and I can submit your name, just let me know.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I would just like to say that I've talked to some teachers that I know that have come to JPS from other districts, and they are very happy being at JPS, and they love the welcoming feeling and the culture here, so that was nice to hear. And then it's just been a positive, great start for my own children, and then for, you know, other families that I've talked to, and there's just, I mean, I could go on and on. There's so many positive things that were said here tonight that's going on in every single school in the district, so it's very exciting. Okay, if there's nothing else, we're at number 11, there's no new business. Number 12 is the calendar, so just some reminders. September 27th is a JCASB organizational meeting dinner at the Jackson Career Center for superintendents and board members. September 30th, like Chris had mentioned, is the homecoming. That will be very exciting with the parade and the game. And then October 18th is our October board meeting, and we will be back in the high school at that time rather than here. And that's all we have for the calendar. So number 13 is adjournment. So at this time, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Angela, could I make one comment before we
yes.
adjourn?
Yep.
I just wanted to mention, I think it was mentioned that there is an alumni basketball game at 5 o'clock before the parade, so if anyone wants to attend that.
All right, thanks for mentioning that. All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion for adjournment. Thank you, Shalonda. Thank you, Cheryl. Any deliberation? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, and have a good night.